All right, so let's talk about what the president's press conference yesterday. It was time for him to unveil, after much deliberation, a week after telling everybody this is a cancer spreading through the region and it's got to be stopped, when his chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff came out and said, hey, when you look at ISIS, you look at somebody with apocalyptic goals and beliefs and aspirations. This week it was time to announce the strategy while not giving away the details. How did it go, Mr. President? Let's hear.
I don't want to put the cart before the horse. We don't have a strategy yet. I think what I've seen in some of the news reports suggests that folks are getting a little further ahead of where we're at than we currently are. And I think that's not just my assessment, but the assessment of our military as well.
The assessment of Speaker John Boehner, after hearing the President of the United States say that we don't have a strategy.
Unbelievable.
In public, Speaker Boehner said the fact that the President admitted he doesn't have one should alarm every American. It particularly alarms General Jack Keane. Here he is with Megyn Kelly.
It's an extraordinary and stunning admission coming from a leader of the world's most powerful nation. And you know, as such, Megyn, it's embarrassing also. We know a lot about ISIS. They reemerged in 2009 and 2010 in earnest in Iraq. They moved into Syria in a comprehensive way in 2011. They've been there for 3 years, taking control of territory. They were a growing menace every single month, increasing in territorial control and imposing their harsh governance. Our intel agencies have been watching them all this time. Everybody in our government in the national security business knows this organization and what a significant threat it is to the Middle East, which is attacking our vital interests and also to our country. We need a comprehensive strategy, and I fear that we may not get one.
Right, come on, putting the cart before the horse. You've had several years to do this, Mr. President. Where's the urgency in this? Fixers, people in crisis management, what they do is they try to get ahead of it. You've had several years. What is the problem with all this? So you would expect that the president would be meeting with his national security advisors and with all the folks from the Pentagon who are apparently working on this. But instead, the president is scheduled to hit up 3 fundraisers in 2 states, meanwhile has zero plan, apparently.
That's terrible. And if you listen to the president, he had so many caveats and so many conditions for taking military action, and it's extraordinary. He made it very clear to ISIS, and you got to figure they were watching, he made it very clear that the United States is not going to do anything anytime soon, which means they can just behead people for as long as they want.
Steve, they took 41 UN workers hostage yesterday.
Yep.
They stripped the Syrian army down to their underwear, murdered between 150 and 250 in cold blood. At the same time, they have an American on deck to be beheaded because he happens to be a journalist and be an American. So we have others being held captive, including a female. There is an urgency to this. And he actually had the audacity to say, and I use that word intentionally, that, well, we could defeat them, but they just got to come back unless we have a long-term strategy. And I'm going to send the Secretary of State to talk to people in the area and see if we can get some momentum in that way. Meanwhile, I got a wedding to go to and 3 fundraisers to attend. What do you think of my suit?
Well, his tan suit, we're actually going to talk about that on the half hour. The national security people have had a bunch of plans for the president. The Pentagon, CENTCOM, they've all put him in front of the president. All he has to do is decide. The president can't decide. More on this throughout the morning. In the meantime, a shocking tale of homegrown terror regarding ISIS. We've told you about Douglas McCain, an American from California, born in Illinois, who turned against his country and died fighting for ISIS overseas. McCain grew up in Minnesota, went to high school there near the Twin Cities, just like Abdirahmi Moheen, the second American killed in that very same battle.
They're buddies, right?
They weren't alone. Troy Castigar, one of McCain's high school buddies, also became a terrorist. He was killed in 2009 in Somalia. Ainsley Earhart is actually live outside the high school in New Hope, Minnesota, where Castigar and McCain grew up and went to school. Ainsley, what are people saying there?
Oh, gosh, Steve, they're so shocked. A lot of these neighbors didn't even know that these guys lived among them. Let me go through each of their personalities and tell you what we're hearing about these guys. The first one is Castigar that you mentioned. I think we have a picture of him. He has been arrested twice, traffic violations and then credit card fraud. His mom says that he converted to Islam and it made him bright again, she says. It was a path that was wonderful for him, she says. Then she talked about his best friend, McCain. She said McCain was funny, goofy, polite. He was always respectful. She was shocked that this happened. He also had been in trouble with the law, traffic violations and disorderly conduct. Then there's Muhammad, the one that was seen in a sweatshirt with the mascot from this same high school. And he said on his Facebook page, I give up this holy life, this worldly life, for Allah. Allah loves those who fight for his cause. And in a picture on Facebook, he's holding a rifle in one hand, and then he's holding the Quran in his other hand. Now, all three of these guys chose to fight as radical Islamists. Their neighbors say they had no idea that terrorists were living on their streets.
I was shocked. I mean, I wasn't thinking that people from the Muslim community or the Somali community would be engaged in those kind of activities over there.
Robbinsdale is a quite quiet, nice suburb, and so it's hard to understand where these ideals came from.
Apparently they're recruiting a lot of guys.
Well, they can't recruit no real U.S. citizen that know about politics and about the law.
These are the two guys that went to your high school. Wow. What's your reaction?
They just look like regular high school students, like nothing that would...
Yeah, 15 years later, they're capable of killing.
I would have never guessed.
It's the largest Somali population in the United States, so it's no surprise that when these radical groups want to come to America and recruit young men and women now, this is where they're going to come, here to Minneapolis. We were driving around their mosques. There's a whole community that is set up for these Somalis. Most of them, of course, are not radical like these three guys. But the leaders here, they have a message for the president. They say he definitely needs to come up with a plan or a strategy because this is just getting worse. ISIS has 100 Americans fighting for them overseas now. Back to you guys in the studio.
They all have U.S. passports, and they could come home.
Right. She left that desk and went over to Minneapolis. Peter King said they've been and he's was chairman of Homeland Security for a while. Now he's with the subcommittee. He said that they've known about Minneapolis, this being a hotbed for terror recruits for years, but they seem to have not been able to connect that with Homeland Security. And on top of that, they also said that these kids go from zeros to martyrs, and that's the attraction right now. Yeah. Both seem to be the commonality between
All you
them.
need is a plane ticket to become a jihadi. It's crazy.
And all you need is the plane ticket back to be here. Meanwhile, 12 minutes after the top, they are coming up kids across the country heading back to school. Along with them, thousands of illegal children. Illegal in this country. Who's paying for all that? We're going to talk about it.
And it was more than a 20-year-old murder mystery, but this morning, a crack in the case. Thanks to Legos?
Soma presents stunning support in 34D to 44G. 3-zone support lifts, shapes, smooths you, and is totally seamless. Stunning support. Exclusive.